Order, Madam Speaker. Order, please. Order, please, Madam Speaker.
Shall we have a moment of silent prayer or meditation? Thank you. You may be seated. Order. Order. Can we get settled? And a very warm welcome to our guests. We will proceed with our order paper dealing with item. We have nothing on item number 2. We'll go to item number 3. And we have received the following apologies. Honorable Mrs. LXH Hlongwa Madlala is not going to attend today's sitting. She has personal commitment. Honorable Mr. SM Sonjika has tendered his apology for not attending today's sitting. He's in Johannesburg attending members' capacity building program. Honorable Ms. LF Shabalala not attending today's sitting due to protest in her ward. Honorable A.V. Kosa has tendered his apology for not attending today's sitting. He has an organizational commitment. We are also notified of the following that are not well. Honorable T.W. Mkunu. Order. Honorable T.W. Mkunu, Premier of Kwazulu-Natal, is not well. Honorable Mrs. B.N. Stolomloy, MEC for Arts and Culture, Sports and Recreation, is not well. We have received the following tablings. KZN Treasury Consolidated Financial Statement for public entities for the year ended 31st March 2018. KZN Treasury Consolidated Annual Financial Statement for KwaZulu-Natal Province for the year ended 31st March 2018. And that concludes item number 3. We then proceed to item number 4. Are there any announcements from the Office of the Premier?
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Premier, T.W. Mkunu, we wish to present the following announcement. The first is that the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, will on Friday, 8 March, which is the International Women's Day, officially launch the National Good Green Deeds Program in East London in Eastern Cape. The Good Green Deeds Program seeks to mobilize the whole country around environmental consciousness, including harmful practices of littering, illegal dumping, pollution, and similar activities that are harming the environment. The program will promote planning and management of resources by all sectors. As Kwazulu-Natal, we also plan to roll out this provincial Good Deed program starting here in Msunduze very soon, and then roll it throughout the province of Kwazulu-Natal. Secondly, MEC for Health, Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo, will lead the provincial government during the launch of Tumamina Impilo Entsha program, which will be launched in Utukela District Municipality on Saturday, 9 March 2019. I thank you.
Order. Item number 5, tabling of reports or papers. There's nothing. We then move to item number 6, formal motions and notices by the Chief Whip. Thank you. Item number 7, notices of bills or motions. Please take your seats. Honorable Zigalala.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, I will move as follows. This House commends KwaZulu-Natal people for holding peaceful by-elections yesterday, reflecting deepening democracy and political tolerance, which is a hallmark of the people's will. The House resolved to congratulate parties that contested and applaud all people who voted. Note the IFP returning Ward 3 of Nongoma, though the ANC support increased. Congratulate the ANC for returning Ward 88 and Ward 91 of eThekwini and Ward 22 of Newcastle. Congratulate the ANC for taking Umhlabiyalingana Ward 7 and Ward 3 of Endumeni from the IFP. Thus, Endumeni municipality will now be in the full leadership of the ANC. I will so move. I thank you.
Honorable Zuma.
Somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngophakamisa kanje. Noting the crucial role Makosi play in the government's efforts to empower rural communities through opening up government procurement to rural communities to be part of the formal value chain. This House resolves to applaud the hosting of a summit early this week by Kwazulu-Natal Kokta in conjunction with Amakosi from Mkhanyakude district, with the aim of providing a platform for discussions about the ways in which rural communities within this district can take advantage of this opportunity. I so move.
Honorable Dube Ncube.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Noting the importance of sound financial management within our municipalities, which should ensure that every cent of taxpayers' money is always accounted for, this House resolved to welcome the meeting KZN Kokta recently held with members of the audit committees from all the province's municipalities. This meeting was designed to address the underlying causes of poor audit outcomes of some municipalities by ensuring that municipal audit committees exercise their oversight mandate more robustly. I so move.
Honorable Mwango.
Honorable Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, I shall so move. Noting that this week South Africa woke up to a violent video of Bongekile Bebsodu Mosmelane being assaulted by her partner Mandla Mampintsha Maphumulo. Gender-based violence prevention is failing vulnerable South Africans. Victims of abuse have lost confidence in the justice system and South African police service, in particular as their partners are seldom treated with their matters are seldom treated with sensitivity it deserves. This House resolved. DA-led government must ensure police report all cases of domestic abuse, comply with processes and procedures with cases of ongoing domestic abuse of women, children, and the elderly, and making it illegal to do so. No victim should approach the police and be turned away. Dear government, to ensure police serve protection orders within 1 month and comply with current and new legislation and regulation for police stations in terms of resources and training to combat abuse. I so move.
Honorable Mazibuko.
Mhlonishwa somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu kulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje lendlu yasamukela isigwebo sikadilika jele esigixabeza umlisa ongixolani Nsele okwambonambi wadlwengula ingane neminyaka emithathu ngo-2015. Lendlu inquma ukuncoma inhlaka zomthetho ngomsebenzi eziwenzileyo zokufaka lo mgulukudu ejele. Okwesibili ukuyala futhi inhlaka zomthetho ukuba ziqhubeke iqinisa isandla ukulwa nokuhlukunyezwa nodlame lwazo zonke inhlobo kungakhathalekile ukuthi kusenziwa ubani ebhekise kubani. Okwesithathu ukunxenxa umphakathi kubuvuka umpejazana. Ubike zonke izikhohlakalo ezinokubeza zishaya futhi zihlukumeze noma ngayiphi indlela abantu besifazane izingane kanye nanoma ubani omunye ohlukunyezwayo. Hlonishwa somlomo ngiyaphakamisa.
Honorable Kuzwayo.
Honorable Speaker, the NFP give notice that at the next sitting of this House, we shall move as follows. Noting that in Okahlamba, Banele age 5 and Spelele age 6 both died because there was alleged no ambulance to reach them following an incident of initial near drowning in a cattle dip. When they reached the clinic, eventually transported by family members, the alleged refusal of emergency treatment that eventually led to the tragic loss of 2 young ones. This while the staff alleged watched them die. And further, noting that our MMS are in a crisis, this House resolves to convey condolences of Timdletshe and Dwangu families, to call upon the Premier to instruct the Health MEC to launch an urgent investigation into the death of these children, to condemn the Health MEC on whose hands is the blood of these children, and 530 oncology patients because of the inaction when he had the opportunity to do something. I shall so move. I thank you.
Order. Honorable Ndlovu.
Mama Somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo ngiyophamisa kanje. Lendlu iyakugxeka izenzo ezihlazo nesibindi esimbi sikaKhongolose nabasebenzi bakahulumeni abasaqhaphaza izinsiza kanye nezimoto zikahulumeni uma kunokhetho lohulumeni basemakhaya. Endumeni wa 3 imoto KZN 73574 ibithwele ama-food parcel iwahambisela ama-volunteer e-ANC. Wat 91 eThekwini izimoto zikamasipala NDM 16599 nezinye bezithwela ama-volunteer zikhankasela i-ANC eWat 91. Ngakho ke lendlu inquma kanje. Ongqongqoshe beminyanga efanele balifakela izibuko loludaba lokuchaphaza kwemali yabakhokhi bentela. Ayipheli inkohlakalo kuhulumeni obusayo. #vote EFF.
Honorable Rajpansi.
Madam Speaker, I hereby move that, noting that the Minority Front held a successful election manifesto launch on Saturday, further noting that a few persons burnt previous party T-shirts indicating a wish to join the MF states categorically that we distance ourselves from such distasteful acts, as the MF always advocates political tolerance. I so move, Mrs. Rajbansi.
Honorable Bamji.
Madam Speaker, I give notice that at the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. Given the challenges facing the Department of Health, there are also positive results, namely the opening of ideal clinics around KZN and the re-engineering of primary health care to provide quality medical services for all. Leadership on all fronts of society need to embrace the NHI and celebrate what it stands for. Accordingly, the MEC is called upon to advise the Department of Health to strengthen its capacity to monitor and analyze via regular SWOT analyses for potential shortcomings and negative perceptions about its capacity to implement NHI. I so move.
Honorable Dlomo, SM.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. In the next sitting of this House, on behalf of the African National Congress, I shall move as follows. Ukuvumbuka kwabaholi namaqembu adukisa abantu ngokuqashwa esibhedlela esizovula eThekwini Dr. Priska Isaka Seme kuyasihlazisa. Isikhangiso eseziphumile okwamanje ezika CEO, uCFO, no-nurse manager kanye no-clinical manager. Nokuthi ke wonke amathuba emisebenzi azoba khona izokhangiswa emaphephandabeni afundwa umphakathi naku-website ye-department nokuthi ayikho imisebenzi kahulumeni ezokhangiswa ku-Facebook. Siphakamisa ukuthi umphakathi awulindele inyanga esobe sivota ngayo ngoMeyi ngoba kileyo nyanga futhi esobe sikhipha ngayo izikhangiso ezophuma zilungiselela ukuvula kwesibhedlela ngoJulayi ka-2019. Niqaphele abaholi abangenalwazi abafisa nje udumo benza izinto ezingamukelekile ngokuqoqa ama-CV ngo-cardboard bathathe u-CV bathi khona imisebenzi ingakhangisiwe ngiyophakamisa kanje.
Honorable Tusi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the next sitting day of this Honorable House, on behalf of the ANC, I will move as follows. Noting the sacrosanct nature of the oath our councillors took when they were sworn into office, which requires them to at all times act in the best interest of residents who rely on their municipality for essential services such as water, roads, sanitation, and electricity. This House resolves to welcome the swift action by the provincial government to place the Abaqulusi local municipality under administration following a series of governance failures which have threatened the financial viability of the municipality and hampered service delivery. It is ultimately this sacrosanct oath of councillors that this intervention seeks to uphold. I so move.
Honorable Msimango.
Mhlonishwa somlomo ngokuhlala kwalendlu elandekayo ngaphamisa kanje. Lendlu iyashaqeka ukuza ukuthi ziyanda kunokuba ziphele izikhalo zomkhuba oqhubekayo eminyangweni kwezezibonelelo lapho izibonelelo zabantu zintshontshwa ngabantu abangaziwa futhi zikhishwe ezindaweni ezahlukene ekubeni abanikazi bamakhadi bengazi lutho ukuthi lokhu kwenzeka kanjani. Lendlu inquma kanje unqenqa umhlonisha weziwe Thusi ukuba aphuthume ajube ithimba elizophenya kabanzi libheke ukuthi lo mkhuba wenzeka kanjani futhi kukhona yini abangemva kwalomkhuba khona ngaphakathi eminyangweni. Lo mkhuba unesihluku nonya ngoba ulambisa izingane kanye nabantu asebekhulile abemukela imali yesibonelelo. Mhlonishwa somlomo ngiyawuphakamisa.
Honorable Rogers.
You can't see your presiding officer.
Deputy Speaker, you can't raise the point of
Yabulela Somlom. I give notice that I shall move at the next sitting of this House that the DA notes the pathetic attempt by a senior member of the African National Congress last week in this House to mislead the House, saying that somebody of the opposition spat on Jacob Zuma. The truth is, when Jacob Zuma approached me, I looked into his eyes and I said politely, I will not shake your hand. The sad reality is that the ANC turns criticism into race. Let me remind you that the ANC president, Ramaphosa, recently referred to Zuma's administration as the wasted 9 years. Let me further remind you of state capture, of the Guptas, of the Eskom destruction, of Bosasa, the list goes on. That the majority of you sitting in these benches today were the ones behind recalling Jacob Zuma, and the question is, why would you recall a president who you thought was doing your party justice or the country justice? The ANC has clearly shown they are no longer the proud liberation movement, but a political party that lurches from one crisis to another, lacking principles and continually playing the race card when you are void of substantive argument. I so move.
Honorable Tabashe. Honorable Tabash. Your motion. Did you stand up for a motion? Your name is ticked here.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me deal with the motion, not with the story that we are told. Somlomo, in the next sitting of this House, I'll move as follows. Noting the importance of every citizen within our province playing an active role in keeping public spaces within our communities clean, as this promotes clean living spaces for each community as a whole. The House then resolves to applaud the bold action by the MEC for Kokta, Nomusa Dube, in leading a recent cleanup campaign in Umlazi, where she engaged residents on the importance of keeping their community clean as part of efforts to combat serious social ills which can be partly traced to the failure by the individuals in our communities to dispose of waste in a manner that is proper and safe. I will so move.
Honorable Khoza NM.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the next sitting of this House, on behalf of the ANC, I shall move as follows. Noting the series of deadly assassinations of municipal officials and councillors, which threaten to destabilize the institution of local government within our province, this House therefore resolves to, 1, welcome the swift arrest of suspects in connection with the recent murder of Technical Director in the Alfred Duma local municipality. 2, to plead with community members who might have more information regarding this issue to come forward so that more arrests can be made. I shall so move, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable I.S. Nkize.
Ngibonga Somlomo. At the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. That the extension of the Zimbabwe sanctions for a year by the US President Donald Trump, saying that the new government policies continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to US foreign policy. This House notes that this is the US President's figment of his own imagination, since Zimbabwe throughout history has never been a threat to any country. Therefore, this House condemns this senseless action by the US President and call for the uplifting of sanctions against Zimbabwe. I shall so move.
Honorable Gumbi HS.
Honorable Speaker, at the next sitting of this House, I shall move the following motion. Noting that Kokta MEC Numusa Dube has informed the DA yesterday that she will proceed with a 1 million rand lawsuit against the DA and its leader, that this lawsuit is of a personal interest and not the public interest, that the initial threat of such a lawsuit was done by her husband and his company, and further illustrating that it is of a personal interest. Resolve that the MEC must use her ill-received wealth and not the public purse to pursue this case, that public money and the department's focus must be on fixing municipalities such as Umsunduzi and fixing its collapse and not on personal litigation. I shall so move.
Honorable Moodley. Honorable Moodley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the next sitting day of this House, I shall move as follows. The horrific accident that claimed the lives of 3 young girls in Newlands East yesterday is a catalyst for tougher action on taxi drivers who flout the rules with disastrous consequences. We call on the Honourable MEC Nkolisi Kaunda to lead the clarion call to end the senseless road deaths by becoming tougher on the taxi industry to heed rules. The loss of innocent lives cannot simply be accepted. Families are grieving, and the deaths of these children should not go in vain. This I so move.
Honorable Dube Evie.
Somlomo nendlu yakho, on the next sitting of this House, on behalf of the ANC, I shall move as follows. The understanding of the oath taken by our councillors when they take their offices to ensure that they will provide and ensure that the municipality will be run essentially and all services will be given to the people. The House resolved to welcome the provincial government under the leadership of Honorable Nomusa Dube by placing umkhandlu abaqulusi oholwa i-IFP under administration. Anosho masenqedwe ukukreyula.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Speaker, on the point of order. On the point of order.
Take your seat, Honourable Simang. Take your seat, Honourable Simang.
Nangu uDube esibiza ngezinja. Nangu uDube esibiza ngezinja.
Take your seat, Honourable Simang.
Honourable Speaker.
Take your seat. Order. Oh, Honourable Simanga, you'll go out if you insist. Order. Take your seat. Take your seat.
Ngicela ukuqhubeka somlomo.
Order.
We therefore welcome the swift move done kumkhandlu wabaqulusi under the IFP. We believe as people of KwaZulu-Natal that the future is always safe under the leadership of the ANC. We also recommend that the MEC Nomusa Dube must do the same.
Honourable Dube, can you finish your motion?
We recommend that the MEC must do the same
Can you
on the
conclude
umkhandlu
your... Yes, Honorable Dube, continue.
to Zululand municipality, where the mayor of the IFP is found to be sitting in the meetings where tenders are being discussed. Lesi senzo sisibuka njengehlazo nanjengokwehluleka kwe-IFP ukuphatha imikhandlu yabo. Siyacela ukuba uNomusa Dube Ncube angenelele ngokukhulu ukusheshsha ngiyophakamisa.
Corrupt as the ANC.
Order, order, order. Honorable Mkhulu, you know what? If you continue with this noise, you'll have to be recused from the house because there's no point. Honorable Ngongo, what rule are you standing on?
A point of order. A point of order. Ukuthi umfundisi uDuba iphinde emotion mhlambe ebhizi inbox ka Bebs uDuba ufuna ku inbox ka Bebs uDuba umfundisi uDuba asichazele.
Honorable Bibi, Honorable Bibi, Honorable Bibi, order. We are still continuing with the motion. I'm calling on Honorable Bibi to stand up. Your name is...
Thank you, Somlomo Mama.
Honorable members, we've got guests here that have been invited to come and listen to the process, not to your noise. And I don't think that's what we want to project.
Somlomo Mama. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. Noting the death of young women at the hands of partners. This House therefore resolves we need a stricter gun control measures in South Africa, as there are more guns in private hands than there are with the state, and they contribute to violent crime. I shall so move, Somlom.
Honorable Lutiti. Honorable Mkhunu, please lower your voice. Honorable Lutiti.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Noting the levels of illegal fishing, in the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. There are many functions the South African Navy performs at present that could be transferred to a Coast Guard service, such as search and rescue, to support the South African Maritime Safety Authority, combating pollution to assist the Department of Environmental Affairs, high seas chases of ships engaged in illegal fishing to assist the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, anti-piracy and supporting law enforcement. Therefore, this House resolves as follows: to applaud the establishment of the Coast Guard, which will go a long way in protecting our environment and fighting illegal poaching. I shall so move.
Honorable Sengwa.
Mhlonishwa Somlomo, ngokuhlala kwalendlu okulandelayo egameni le-ANC ngiyophakamisa kanje. Lendlu ikhathazekile ngezenzo zokugwazisa okwenziwe umfundi waseMangosuthu obewusihlalo we-EFF lapho ekhokhise umfundi obefike eMangosuthu ngenhloso yokumtholela indawo yokuhlala ngaphakathi. Uvelileke kodwa enkantolo. Sekuyacaca ukuthi kuningi okwenziwa abaholi be-EFF ezikoleni ukubanxenxa abafundi ukuthi kube sengathi bayabasiza kanti babaholela ophathe. Le ndlu inquma kanje kuzofanele kwenziwe uphenyo kuwo wonke amanyuvesi ukuze kubanjwe labo abaqola izingane. Ngiyophakamisa.
Honorable Shah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that at the next sitting of the House, I shall move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance as follows. Noting the tragic incident in which a taxi struck learners on Dumisani Mackay Drive, resulting in the deaths of 3 learners and critical injury to 1. Further noting that the taxi allegedly skipped the red traffic signal. The House therefore resolves to do 3 things. 1, to extend our sincere condolences to the bereaved families and friends of the deceased. And 2, to pray for the speedy recovery of the injured. And 3, to call on SAPS and the NPA to investigate a charge of manslaughter against the reckless driver instead of culpable homicide. The taxi industry must stop placing at risk the lives of all road users. I shall so move.
Honorable Ntuli MM.
Somlomo mama ngiyabonga. Ngokuhlala kwalendlu kulandelayo ngiyophamisa kanje. Lendlu inaka umlomo ongathethi imanga uhulumeni ka-ANC ngokuthinta izimpilo zabantu njengoba umphathisa wezamaciko namasiko umama uBongisithole Mloyi ezovula uchungechunge lwemitapo yolwazi kulama district alandelayo Zululand, Ilembe, Ugu kanye namanye kungekudala okuyikhwela likahulumeni wabantu njengoba izindawo zasemakhaya zihlomula ubuthaphuthaphu ngentuthuko eyayigcina emadolobheni. Lendlu inquma nje ukuba sibambisane sonke nemiphakathi yakithi sivikele lentuthuko kuze kuhlomule nezizukulwane ezizayo. Ngiyophakamisa.
Honorable Dlamini HS.
Thanks, Mike. Madam Speaker, ngokuhlala kwalendlu kulandelayo ngiyophakamisa kanje. Lendlu inaka umsebenzi owenziwa iminyango kahulumeni okhokhelwa nguKhongolose. Somlomo ngivumele ngincoma umnyango wezempilo osugijimise umkhankaso wokulisana nokukhishwa kwezisu okungekho emthethweni. Esikubona kubhalwe emadolobheni kubhalwe kanje: o quick abortion and safe abortion. Kubhalwa izigebengi ezidlala ngabantu bakithi bebeka impilo zabantu engcupheni. Lokhu sikubuka esikubonile ePinetown nasePortshepstone kuleli sonto. Lo mkhankaso omuhle kangaka uphinde uhambisane nombono kaNdunankulu uMacingwane kanye nomongameli wezwe ubaba uCyril Ramaphosa wokuhlanza amadolobha. Lendlu inquma kanje ukunxusa omasipala ukuba bawukhathalele lo mkhankaso oxwayisa abesifazane ngezikhangiso ezingekho emthethweni ezibulala isizwe nokubeka phambili izinhlelo ezizokwenza amadolobha ahlale ehlanzekile. Ngiyophakamisa somlomo.
Honorable McDonnell.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I give notice that on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I shall move at the next sitting as follows. This House notes the MEC of Edtia's closing down of businesses belonging to being run by illegal immigrants in the province. Also noting that the Premier of Gauteng stated that illegal immigrants using state resources in health and social care section is becoming unsustainable. Thirdly, noting that our borders are porous and Home Affairs corruption is allowing many illegals free entry into our province. The failed ANC is unable to secure our borders. This House therefore resolves that we insist the Department of Home Affairs secure our borders for the benefit of our citizens, our economy, and our wildlife. I shall so move.
Thank you very much. That was the last member on the motions. I hope all members have been. Who's no? I'm using what is before me, which is the name that have been ticked. But if you say you were up, they didn't see you, I'll allow you that opportunity. Can you raise your motion? Kuluma phela honorable Mhlonishwa. Awuthikwa ngela kodwa.
Madam Speaker, in the next sitting of this House, I shall move as follows. This House notes that a nurse has won a lengthy battle against the Kwazulu-Natal Department of Health after being sidelined for a senior post at King Dinuzulu Hospital, allegedly because she is colored, although she had met all the requirements. This House resolves that, 1, the appointment of individuals to positions must be based on competence, not their race. 2, there is a need for the country to redouble its efforts to tackle race inequality. Madam Speaker, I shall so move.
Racist.
Thank you very much. That then concludes. Honorable Speaker, what rule are you standing on? What rule are you standing on, Honorable Speaker?
Speaker, bengithi nje mhlambe udaba lasendumeni inkathi ilibambe.
Honorable Speaker, don't abuse the space or take your seat. Honorable members, you know the rules, honorable members. Please don't abuse. We have come to the end of this item on motions. We then move to the next item on the order paper. Item 8.1, tabling of the KZN Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2019. I'm going to call upon Honorable Minister for Finance, Honorable B.F. Scott, to table the bill.
Honourable Speaker, honourable members, the province of KwaZulu-Natal is required in terms of a government notice to table an amended adjustments appropriation bill for 2018-19, referred to as the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2019, from the Government Gazette number 42258, which was published by National Treasury and signed by the Honourable Minister of Finance on the 1st of March 2019. This Gazette, which is attached for ease of reference, was published in terms of the Division of Revenue Act 2018, Act 1 of 2018, and provides information on adjustments to existing allocations to provinces in the 18-19 financial year. The Gazette therefore updates information that was published in the Division of Revenue Act 2018 and is in accordance with sections 19 and 20 of DORA, which allow for the stopping of the transfer of funds from some provinces and the reallocation of funds to other provinces respectively. In short, these provisions allow the Minister of Finance to approve the stopping and reallocation of funds. In terms of KwaZulu-Natal's appropriation, the government notice affects the Early Childhood Development Grant under Vote 13, Social Development. In total, 1.976 million is being stopped from the Northern Cape and allocated to KwaZulu-Natal as follows. The transfer of funds in respect of this grant is being reduced in compliance with Section 19 of DORA 2018. The National Department of Social Development stopped the transfer of funds to the Northern Cape at the same amount I mentioned, 1.976 million, with regard to the Early Childhood Development Grant, following revised allocations by the National Department of Social Development. In compliance with Section 20 of DORA 2018, the National Department of Social Development reallocates the amount of 1.976 million to KwaZulu-Natal for the Early Childhood Development Grant following revised allocations by the National Department of Social Development. The attached Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2019 highlights the effect of these changes on Vote 13, Social Development, which is in grey shading in the schedule to the bill. While this allocation has been made rather late in the financial year by the National Department of Social Development, it shows that there is faith that the province has sufficient capacity to spend, and I must really look to the Honourable MEC of Social Development and congratulate her. The additional funding relating to Early Childhood Development Grant is highlighted, as I said, in grey shading in the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill. I therefore table in this House the Second Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2019 with its explanatory memorandum and the associated schedule. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable MEC. The bill is now referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance, and the Portfolio Committee is allowed to leave the chamber to process the bill as they'll come back for the bill for debate and voting. So the bill is now referred to the Portfolio Committee. We'll then proceed to item 8.2. The MEC will then present the budget speech by MEC for Finance. Honourable MEC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, honourable members. Let me start with the global and national outlook. 2 weeks ago, while tabling the national budget, the Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Tito Mboweni, said that we had expected economic growth of 0.7% in 2018, and this is still our estimate. We now expect a slower but still steady recovery after the 2018 technical recession, with real GDP growth in 2019 expected to rise to 1.5% and to strengthen moderately to 2.1% in 2021. Similar to most developing economies, South Africa's economic outlook is vulnerable to both internal and external risks, and with world growth expected to slow down, our growth forecast will continue to be constrained. The upside is that some of our risks can be managed through the steadfast implementation of reforms and positive policy directions as outlined by His Excellency, the President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his State of the Nation address earlier last month, and by the Honourable Minister Mboweni in his budget speech. These include reforms around Eskom, managing the growing public service wage bill, amongst others. External downside risks relate to an increase in oil prices, ongoing foreign trade tensions, volatile commodity prices, and so forth. Further, higher interest rates in Europe and the US could affect the financial markets and the exchange rate through capital outflows. On the upside, the implementation of proposed structural reforms could reduce remaining policy uncertainties and stimulate domestic demand through higher than expected investment. Honourable Minister Mbuyeni alluded to the challenge posed by the debt to GDP ratio and indicated that this needs to be managed efficiently. He outlined ways in which government spending would be reduced, including a reduction in the government wage bill, as mentioned, while also reducing spending on specific programs. I think we all understand now how essential it is for us to control our debt, and provinces are expected to play their part, especially in areas such as controlling our wage bill and stimulating the economy. During the table of the national budget last month, Honourable Minister Mbuyeni indicated that the budget deficit for the financial year is estimated to be an average of 4.3% of the government's GDP, and interest payments on government debt would amount to 3.6% of GDP. With the proposed revenue enhancements and the plan to control government spending, the budget deficit is projected to narrow slightly from 4.2% of GDP in 18-19 to 4% in 21-22. Moving to infrastructure. One way of addressing our country's growth prospects, is to inject more funding into infrastructure projects. Sustainable growth is of utmost importance, not only to South Africa's fiscal challenges, but also to the broader socio-economic needs of our people. Measures to stimulate the economy have been pronounced by national government, with more attention directed at inter alia infrastructural development through the Infrastructure Fund, easing of visa regulations to enable business travel and thus stimulate the tourism sector, injecting public spending into agriculture, and redeveloping township economies. This is further supported by the recently initiated investment strategy aiming to attract both foreign and domestic private investment. Thus, as announced by His Excellency the President and the Honourable Minister of Finance, the Infrastructure Fund will be a centre pillar of the budget, and so will reprioritisation of government spending in general. Government will accelerate 526 billion rands worth of on-budget projects by bringing the private sector and the development finance institutions on board. In several instances, the private sector will design, build, and operate critical infrastructure assets. In addition, the government will commit 100 billion over the next decade. How does this look in terms of our context and fiscal policy considerations, starting with national? The National Minister of Finance presented us with a plan on how we can return, to his words, the plum years, as he so aptly put it. It is our responsibility as provinces to support this plan. One of the areas we must focus on is controlling our wage bill, and while this province has done a remarkable job already in managing the appointment of critical staff, more can still be done. The controls we have put in place since 2015, whereby departments will only fill critical posts, have resulted in a decline of staff numbers through natural attrition. The province will continue to fill critical posts to ensure that services are delivered to our people. The Honourable Minister Mbuyeni also highlighted the 5 tasks with His Excellency the President had listed in his SONA, namely to accelerate inclusive economic growth and create jobs, improve the education system and develop the skills that we need now and in the future, improve the quality of life for all South Africans, especially the poor, fight corruption and state capture, and strengthen the capacity and capability of the state to address the needs of the people. We cannot be spectators in this plan, but must be active participants and enablers of these national goals. I will address some of the ways the province will contribute to this later in this address. It is against this context that I table the provincial budget today. KwaZulu-Natal has not seen the end of budget cuts, with the main equitable share budget cut over the MTEF being as a result of the annual data updates of the equitable share formula. There is also a fairly minor cut relating to the decision taken to freeze salary increases for public office bearers. The data updates resulted in equitable share budget cuts of 444.6 million, 706.6 million, and 1.3 billion over the MTEF. In addition, His Excellency the President announced that there would be minimal or no salary increases for public office bearers. Premiers, members of the executive councils, and speakers do not receive salary increases, while members of the provincial legislatures receive a 2.5% increase. This announcement resulted in National Treasury cutting 8.8 million, 9.4 million, and 9.5 million from the province's equitable share. As an aside, this is a strong political commitment by the ANC government to set an example and lead the debate with our brothers and sisters in the trade union movement to walk in our footsteps. These are difficult times for the province, as this is the 7th consecutive year, the consecutive MTF period where we are losing money, yet our responsibilities to our people are not diminishing. How do we affect these budget cuts without cutting departments' budgets? How do we affect these budget cuts without impacting on service delivery spending? These questions were the focal point of a number of ministers' Committee on the Budget, Budget Council, and the Provincial Executive Council discussions in the lead-up to this budget day. Solutions are harder to find, considering that we have had to find ways to deal with these budget cuts for many years. We need to cut budgets, but we want to do so by ensuring the least impact on the citizens of this province. According to the African proverb, and I quote, "The poorest man in the world is not the one without money, but the one without people." The discussions culminated into a very workable solution. In the first instance, our cost-cutting measures remain in place and must be implemented with vigor so that our spend remains service delivery focused. Secondly, it was agreed to lower the contingency reserve to 400 million per annum as opposed to the 650 million which we previously set as a norm. It was, however, not possible to set the contingency reserve at 400 million in the middle of the MTF at this stage, and I will elaborate on this later in the speech. It was agreed that the budget cut relating to the freezing of public office bearers' salaries would be cut from those departments who budget for such salaries, and cutting this budget from the departments will not impact on service delivery. Provincial Treasury also undertook an exercise whereby provincial-owned revenue budgets of all departments were assessed, and where these were found to be too conservative, these departments were engaged to increase their budgets in this respect. The final part of the solution was looking at any amounts which had been recalled into the Provincial Revenue Fund in recent years to assess whether these funds will be needed in the near future. Where it was felt that these projects would not be immediately implemented, these funds are being used to fund the budget cuts, with the undertaking to return these funds to these projects as soon as we are able to do so, or when these projects require funding. And these include an amount of 600 million has been held in the Provincial Revenue Fund as the first earmarked amount for the provincial government precinct. The current economic climate and the constant budget cuts have not made it possible to add any further funds to this project since the initial 600 million, which was ring-fenced by Provincial Treasury. Of this amount, 300 million is used to offset the budget cuts. The KZN Sharks Board was allocated 10.5 million in the 13-14 financial year for the purchase of land. This transaction did not materialize, and the funds were therefore recalled into the Provincial Revenue Fund. These funds are used to offset the budget cuts. In the 18-19 adjustments estimate, vote 12, Transport requested that 50 million be allocated to them for the construction of a cross-border crime-fighting structure to be suspended from their vote, as the funds were allocated on condition that a memorandum of agreement be signed between the province and other national bodies responsible for border control, and the aim of recuperating the seed funding. This condition has never been met. These funds are therefore currently held in the Provincial Revenue Fund and are being used to offset the budget cuts. Within this constrained fiscal environment, we did our utmost to protect the funds we spend on enhancing the lives of our people. Budget cuts always mean that tough decisions have to be taken. This government is totally committed to effect these budget cuts in areas that will have the lowest impact on our people. Let me move to the additions in KZN's provincial equitable share. On the brighter side, National Treasury is adding some funds to the provincial fiscus. These funds are earmarked for specific purposes and amount to 85.9 million rand, 88.2 million and 300.8 million over the MTEF. These additional allocations are as follows. To social development, they will receive 6.6 million and 7.1 million in 2021 and 21-22. The National Department of Social Development is seeding contracts they have with 9 provincial food distribution centres and 84 community nutrition development centres to the 9 provincial departments of social development. These amounts are added from the second year onward to allow provincial departments to manage these contracts. Also for social development, they receive 62.5 million, 66.7 and 70.4 million over the MTEF with respect to the social worker employment grant. The social development sector is phasing 2 conditional grants into the equitable share, namely the social worker employment grants and the substance abuse treatment grant. This is not new money, though, but merely a change in the funding stream from conditional grant to equitable share funding. KZN was not a recipient of the substance abuse treatment grant, so there are no revisions made for this province in this regard. Provincial Treasury, we receive 5 million per year over the 1920 MTEF as part of our ongoing efforts to increase technical capacity within infrastructure units at provincial treasuries. Education receives 27 million in 1920. The Department of Women recognizes the importance of uninterrupted education for indigent schoolgirls, and these funds have been added as a step to ensure that provinces improve access to sanitary products and sanitary dignity for these female scholars. This falls very much in line with the march of the ANC government to protect women in our society. Health receives an allocation in the outer year of the 1920 MTEF to assist with dealing with the Cuban Doctors Program. A total of 1 billion is allocated to the health sector in 21-22, with KZN's share being 208 million. COCTA receives 9.6 million, 9.9 million, and 10.3 million over the MTEF to assist provinces to strengthen their support interventions in municipalities as per Section 139 of the Constitution. Let me look at some of the provincial priorities. Due to the budget cuts, it was not possible to allocate any funds to any new provincial priorities, but departments are encouraged to reprioritize their own budgets to ensure that all key government programs are sufficiently funded. While no new priorities were funded in the 1920 MTF baseline, some priorities were funded using funds allocated in previous budget processes. Some departments also requested funds to be suspended from their budgets in 1819 and to be reallocated to them in 1920. I have discussed these in previous budget processes and will therefore not go through them in detail. Some of these include the continued funding of the Treasury Health Assistance Plan, as well as the Provincial Archive Repository, amongst others. Further information on these is provided in Chapter 3 of the 1920 Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, which I am tabling today. Let me look at the function shifts. There were various function shifts that will be formalized in the 1920 MTF budget. The first one is the learner transport function, which moves from Vote 5 Education to Vote 12 Transport. The first part of this function shift was already formalized in the 1819 adjustments estimate, and this has been carried through over the 1920 MTF. Secondly, the Honourable Premier signed a proclamation on the 21st of November 2018, giving effect to the movement of the Gaming and Betting function, inclusive of the Gaming and Betting Board, the KZN Gaming and Betting Board, from Vote 1, Office of the Premier, to Vote 4, Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. The proclamation also gives effect to the Heritage function, inclusive of AMAFA, Kwazulu-Natal, moving from Vote 1, Office of the Premier, to Vote 15, Arts and Culture. Both of these function shifts are effective from the 1st of April 2019. Let me move to the fiscal framework of 1920. The provincial fiscal framework takes into account the changes in the provincial equitable share, conditional grants and provincial own revenue allocations, as well as priorities funded using provincial cash reserves. There is a table there that you can look at. The revised allocation under line 1 of this table shows that KwaZulu-Natal's total budget allocation from National Treasury is 127.2 billion in 1920, 135.2 billion in 2021, and 143.4 billion in 21-22. When we add our provincial own revenue and provincial cash resources to this, the total allocation over the MTEF is 130.9 billion, 139 billion, and 147.1 billion over the MTEF. Line 2 shows that the provincial departments are planning to spend 130.5 billion, 138.7 billion, and 146.6 billion over the MTEF. Line 3 shows that the province continues to budget for the contingency reserve, with 1920 showing a contingency reserve of 400 million and 2022 showing a contingency reserve of 499.9 million. The middle year falls short of 400 million minimum contingency reserve the province has set for itself, but this will be rectified when the 1920 adjustments estimate net financial position calculations are made later this year. As in the past, the contingency reserve is being kept for a number of reasons, but mainly to protect the provincial fiscus against the impact of unforeseen expenditure pressures when they arise. These funds can then be relied on to allocate to unforeseen expenditure pressures on the adjustments estimate. Moving to conditional grants. National Treasury made some changes to the conditional grant allocation, with KZN's grant allocation increasing from 907.4 million in 1920, decreasing to 30.2 million in 2021, and increasing by 1.3 billion in 21-22. Some amendments to the conditional grant allocation provide for inflationary growth. Some grants are phased into the provincial equitable share. Some grants are absorbed by other grants, while others provide for disaster relief efforts. After these amendments, the province's conditional grant allocation amounts to 21.1 billion, 21.8 billion, and 23.1 billion over the MTEF. The following are the amendments made to the conditional grant allocations. The land care grant under the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development shows inflationary growth of 721,000 Rand in 21-22 only, with no changes to the grant allocation in the first 2 years in the MTF. The budget for the grants amounts to 12.4 million, 13.1 million, and 13.8 million over the MTEF. The Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, or as we commonly know it as CASP grant, reduces by 7.3 million and 3.3 million in 1920 and 2021, respectively, while showing inflationary growth of 14.5 million in 21-22. The reduction is to fund the foot and mouth disease facility that will be established by the Agriculture Research Council. Furthermore, an amount of 887.3 million, which was previously unallocated at a national level in the grant, is being reprioritized and ring-fenced under the Department of Agriculture, Forestries and Fisheries, which is at national level, to enable DAF to transfer funds to the Land Bank for the blended finance mechanism. The grant amounts to 199.3 million, 217.2 million, and 235 million over the MTEF. The Elima Letsima Projects Grant under the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development only receives an inflationary increase of 4.8 million in 21-22. This grant stands at 75.3 million, 79.4 million, and 84.2 million over the MTEF. The province receives 120.2 million in 1920, which is a slight decrease from the 124.6 million received in 1819, with regards to the EPWP integrated grant for provinces allocated to various departments as follows. Firstly, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development receives 4.8 million, Arts and Culture receives 2.1 million, COCTA receives 3.9 million, ETIA receives 5.5 million, Education receives 2 million, Health receives 10.3 million, Human Settlements receives 15.1 million, Public Works receives 4.7 million, and Transport receives 71.7 million. The province also received 90.2 million in 1920, which is an increase from the 76.4 million received in 1819, with regard to the social sector EPWP incentive grant for provinces allocated to various departments as follows. Community Safety and Liaison receives 7 million, Education receives 24.8 million, Health receives 21 million, Social Development receives 34.9 million, and Sports and Recreation receives 2.4 million. Moving on to the Education Infrastructure Grant, it shows an increase of 392.5 million in 1920, 22.1 million in 2021, and 177 million in 21-22, with the new budget amounting to 2.2 billion, 2 billion and 2.2 billion over the MTEF. The increase in 1920 includes 200.3 million in terms of disaster relief funding allocated to deal with repairs of schools relating to the 10th of October 2017 flood disaster that occurred in our province. The balance of the increase relates to the incentive nature of this grant. Funds were initially allocated to the province for sanitation projects at schools, but these have since been recalled by the National Department of Basic Education and centralized under the Schools Infrastructure Backlogs Grant, and these funds can be accessed by all provinces. The HIV and AIDS Life Skills Education Grant under Education shows inflationary growth of 3.6 million in 21-22, with the budget amounting to 62.2 million, 65.5 million, and 69.1 million over the MTEF. The National School Nutrition Program grant under Education receives an increase of 9.7 million in 1920, a decrease of 15.6 million in 2021, and an increase of 78.4 million in 21-22, with no explanation provided, unfortunately, by National Treasury for this fluctuating trend. The grant stands at 1.6 billion, 1.7 billion, and 1.8 billion over the MTEF. The Math, Science, and Technology grant under Education shows inflationary growth of 3.6 million in 21-22. The grant's budget amounts to 64.6 million, 67.1 million, and 70.7 million over the MTEF. The Learner and Profound Intellectual Disabilities grant decreases by 1 million in 1920 and 2021, while increasing by 902,000 in 21-22. The reduction is not explained by National Treasury, while the growth in the outer year appears to be inflationary related. The budget for this grant over the MTEF is 32.3 million, 34.6 million, and 36.5 million. The Health Professions Training and Development grant under Health sees an inflationary increase of 21.5 million in 21-22. The budget for this grant amounts to 370.9 million, 391.3 million, and 412.8 million over the MTEF. The Health Facility Revitalization grant sees an increase of 200.4 million in 1920, a decrease of 3.8 million in 2021, and an increase of 91.2 million in 21-22. This brings the grant total to 1.2 billion and 1.3 billion over the MTEF. National Treasury indicated that this grant was being cut by 60 million in the first 2 years of the MTEF due to slow spending by the sector as a whole, with only 3 provinces receiving an incentive allocation. It is worth mentioning that KZN's allocation is increasing as we once again, are one of the provinces who benefits from the incentive allocation. Very well done, Honourable MEC for Health. The National Tertiary Services grant sees an inflationary increase of 111.2 million in 21-22. The grant budget amounts to 1.9 billion, 2 billion, and 2.1 billion over the MTEF. The HPV vaccine grant sees a minor adjustment of 1,000 rand in 2021, while showing inflationary growth of 2.8 million in 21-22. So the grant then stands at 47.5 million, 50.1 million, and 52.9 million over the MTEF. A new grant is introduced in health, which I'm sure my Honourable MEC is going to be very happy with, namely the Human Resource Capacitation Grant. This was initially a component of the National Health Insurance indirect grant held under the National Department of Health, but a decision was taken by the sector to make a direct grant allocated to each province. This allocation is to assist provinces to appoint critical staff in health, including nurses, medical interns, and porters, to name a few. The amount allocated to KZN in this regard is 122.3 million, 130.4 million, and 138.7 million over the MTF. This is a huge relief to provincial treasury and to the Department of Health. Some structural changes are made to the comprehensive HIV and AIDS and TB grant, and the grant name is amended to HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant. This grant sees a reduction of 273.6 million in 1920 and 231.5 million in 2021, while showing an increase of 598.8 million in 21-22. The grant total amounts to 5.8 billion, 6.5 billion, and 7.3 billion over the MTEF. In terms of the structural changes to the grant, a separate malaria component is being created within the grant, with funds reprioritized within the grant to fund this new component. It was also decided to split the TB portion of this grant into a separate component in order to improve the monitoring of spending in this area. National Treasury has also indicated that 60 million is reprioritized from this grant over 2 years, being 30 million in 2021 and another 30 million in 21-22, for the sector as a whole to be used for the regional co-financing project for malaria elimination. Finally, the community outreach services component is increased by 1 billion across all 9 provinces to fund the minimum wage of community health workers. This again is another huge relief because we did see this as a spending pressure. Some changes are made to the grants in the human settlement sector. The title deeds restoration grant comes to an end at 2021 and will be phased back into the Human Settlements Development Grant from 21-22 in order to promote improved coordination in support of individuals in the gap market, purchasing homes. An amount of 950 million for the sector as a whole is reprioritized from human settlements over the 1920 MTF, with these funds now being allocated to the National Housing Finance Corporation for the finance-linked individual subsidy program. Funds of 1 billion and 2 billion are cut from human settlements across all 9 provinces in 2021 and 21-22 as part of government's broader set of reductions that are needed to improve the sustainability of the overall fiscus. For KwaZulu-Natal, our human settlements increases by 210.3 million in 1920, while decreasing by 407.3 million and 803.3 million in 2021 and 21-22 respectively. The budget for this grant amounts to 3.5 billion, 3.1 billion, and 2.7 billion over the MTF. National Treasury indicated that in 1920, 247 million of the human resources budget is disaster relief funding and 400 million in 2021 specifically to deal with repairs to houses damaged by the 10th of October 2017 storms. The title deed restoration grant reduces by 6.5 million in 1920 and 6.9 million in 2021, while the full 113 million is phased into the human settlements grant from 21-22 onwards. The budget for this grant is 100.6 million in 1920, 106.1 million in 2021, while being phased into the Human Settlements Development Grant in 2021-22. A new grant, namely the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant, is introduced in the 1920 MTEF. From 1920, a new window is created within the Human Settlements Grant, subject to specific conditions, including that at least 15% of the grant must be spent on informal settlements upgrading. From 2021, this window is formalized into a separate new grant, with the funds for this new grant reprioritized from the Human Settlements Development Grant. The amounts added in this regard are 553.8 million in 2021 and 793.8 million in 21-22. The Mass Participation and Sport Development Grant is decreased by 191,000 in 1920 and 413,000 in 2021, while increasing by 6.7 million in the outer year. This brings the budget for this grant to 104.7 million, 111.2 million, and 118.3 million over the MTEF. The Provincial Roads Maintenance Grants increases by 110 million in 1920, decreases by 3 million in 2021, and increases by 140.3 million in 21-22. The grant total now amounts to 1.9 billion in the first 2 years of the MTEF and 2 billion in the outer year. National Treasury indicated that any additions to this grant are due to the incentive nature of this grant, with allocations being made based on last year's performance. An amount of 119.5 million has been cut from this grant across all provinces, particularly in 1920 and 2021, to address fiscal pressures. The Public Transport Operation Grant sees an inflationary increase of 68.6 million in 21-22, with the grant's budget amounting to 1.2 billion in the first 2 years of the MTEF and 1.3 billion in the outer year. The Early Childhood Development Grant sees upward adjustments of 2.5 million, 2.6 million, and 9.5 million over the MTEF, bringing the grant total to 116 million, 123.8 million, and 130.6 million over the MTEF. The grant continues to have two components, namely the maintenance component and the subsidy component. The Community Library Services Grant is increased by 500,000 in 1920, another 500,000 in 2021, and 12.3 million in 21-22, and the revised baseline of the grant is 184.4 million, 194.6 million, and 206.4 million over the MTEF. According to I'm now moving on to infrastructure. According to a study undertaken by Jeffrey Stupak, dated the 24th of January 2018, entitled Economic Impact of Infrastructure Investment, infrastructure is understood to be a critical factor in the health and wealth of a country, enabling private businesses and individuals to produce goods and services more efficiently. With respect to overall economic input, increased infrastructure spending by the government is generally expected to result in a higher economic output in the short term by stimulating demand, and in the long term by increasing overall productivity. And this was his quote. It is therefore important that the country, as well as the province, continues to invest in infrastructure development. This ties in with the tasks listed in the SONA by His Excellency President Ramaphosa, namely to accelerate economic growth and to create jobs. The ANC government is really serious about job creation. The province is budgeting to spend 13.6 billion rand in 1920, 13.6 billion in 2021, and 14.4 billion in 21-22 on various infrastructure projects. This includes both equitable share and conditional grant funded infrastructure. If we include the amount budgeted for infrastructure by human settlement, where the assets in this end does not belong to government, the total infrastructure spend increases to a staggering 16.8 billion, 16.9 billion, and 17.5 billion over the MTEF. This is a considerable injection of funds into the provincial economy. A detailed list of all infrastructure projects that will be implemented in 1920, as well as over the MTEF, is contained in the estimates of capital expenditure, which I'm also tabling today. I want to move to some very important projects that we in the provincial government have planned going forward. I move to transport. The Department of Transport will spend 23.7 billion over the next 3 years of the 1920 MTF. Some of the projects they will be implementing include the main road P104, provides access to Kwakaba and Glendale Heights communities and is a feeder road to the R74, which serves as an important link between the towns of Mapamulu and Stanger. The project entails upgrading 20.4 kilometers of gravel road to a blacktop surface. Construction is currently in progress and is anticipated to be completed in 1920. Another project is the main road P16-2 in the Mzanyati District Municipality, which is 55.6 kilometers in length, with the first 14.6 kilometers consisting of surfaced road. The rest of the road is a gravel road. Main road P16-2 intersects with 2 district roads and serves as the main link from Kranskop to Nutu. This road is in need of upgrade from gravel to blacktop standards as commuters use this road to travel to clinics and hospitals. Construction is currently in progress, where 6.9 kilometers of road have been upgraded in 2018-19, and the remaining kilometers are anticipated to be completed in 22-23, or by then, sorry. The main road P711, located in Mapamulu, is an important route as it assists the surrounding communities by providing access to schools, clinics, churches, creches, and the hospital. The project entails upgrading 29 kilometers of gravel road to a blacktop surface, as well as the construction of 1 major structure. To date, 15 kilometers have been completed, and the remaining 14 kilometers will be completed over the 1920 MTEF. The local road, L1633, will be upgraded from gravel to blacktop surface. This road is located in Bulwer and comprises of an upgrading of 3.4 kilometers in 1920. An estimated 150 EPWP participants will be employed. The department has set a target of constructing 10 new pedestrian bridges and 7 new major vehicle bridges in 1920. These structures will provide easier and safer access to schools, hospitals, clinics, and other government facilities, while also allowing for improved economic activity. Areas where bridges will be built include Mdloti, Mfule, White Mfolozi, and Pongola. Moving to health, the Department of Health's budget is 6.3 billion over the 1920 MTEF. The department will use this allocation for various projects, including the following, and the first one is a huge victory to KZN and its government: the completion of the Dr. Pixley Kasema Memorial Hospital is planned for 1920. In this regard, 50 million is allocated for the final completion of the superstructure of this new 500-bed, regional hospital consisting of various floors and a helipad. In addition, 300 million is allocated for the procurement of equipment needed for this facility. King Edward VIII Hospital will see the department spend 45.6 million in 1920 with a carry through from 2021 for renovations to the existing nursery, psychiatric unit, physiotherapy area, and relocation of the psychology department. An additional 31 million is allocated for equipping of these renovated areas. Schlabisa Hospital is allocated 48.5 million in 1920 with a carryover in the MTF for the construction of an outpatients department, accident and emergency unit, pharmacy, among others. Addington Hospital, where 34.5 million in 1920 with a carry through over the MTF, will be spent on general renovations to the hospital as well as the replacement of a fence or boundary wall and repairs to entrances, renovations to ablution facilities on the ground floor, and the refurbishment of 13 lifts. Moving to education, the Department of Education is budgeting to spend 7.6 billion over the 1920 MTF. The following are some infrastructure projects that will be undertaking. The Dingu Kwazi Secondary School in Zululand District will receive major upgrades amounting to 90 million. Palela Special School in Harry Gwala District, which entails the continued construction of a new school with a budget of 109 million allocated. The Open Gate Special School in Mgongonglovu District will see major upgrades being done to the amount of 59 million. The Collingwood Primary School in Umlazi District, which relates to the construction of a new school, is allocated 18 million. Just a short note on cost cutting. As I mentioned earlier, the cost-cutting measures remain in place and are more important now than ever. We must continue to look for efficiency savings in the face of the continuous budget cuts. Every cent saved through cost-cutting allows us to redirect these funds to service delivery spending areas. To quote Vincent Lombardi, "The measure of who we are is what we do with what we have." I will not repeat the cost-cutting measures in this speech, as they remain largely unchanged from the previous year. The full list is contained in Chapter 2 of the Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, which I'm tabling today. I'm now going to give you an overview per vote for the 1920 MTF. I will briefly discuss what the provincial will buy per department. The table below shows the 1920 MTF department budget per department. Departments are discussed in order of the size of their budget, and you can refer to the table. I will take you through it. Education, according to Benjamin Franklin, who doesn't need any introduction, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. As such, the largest portion of the provincial budget still goes to the Department of Education at 41.4%. The budget allocation over the MTF is 54 billion, 57.7 billion, and 60.9 billion. This budget will be used for various activities as detailed below. Among others, significant effort is being made by this department to improve education. To improve the education we provide in this province, as I will elaborate shortly, and this falls in line with the second task of His Excellency the President's list, as taken from SONA, which says that we must improve our education system and develop our skills. The province is marching to this call. The largest share of the department's budget allocation is for the provision of personnel. In this province, no-fee learners currently constitute 75% of the total population of learners in public ordinary schools. The National School Nutrition Program will provide nutritious meals to 2.3 million learners in 5,729 schools. And for an old member in this House, when this grant first started, it was in its hundreds, and it is now in its very big thousands. The department will prioritize various activities to assist in transforming the schooling system. Firstly, the department will focus on the rationalization or closure of small and non-viable schools with learner enrollment of less than 50 in primary schools. In this regard, 172 primary schools were identified. In secondary schools, the focus will be schools with learner enrollment less than 100, and a total of 76 schools was identified in this category. The department will maintain its intervention programs of previous years, but the main aspect of curriculum delivery and support will focus on the role of circuit managers as curriculum delivery supervisors, the audit of curriculum delivery, reskilling of teachers through improved teacher development strategies, as well as improving assessment strategies in the general education and training band. Subject advisors and circuit managers will assist schools to monitor curriculum coverage. Schools will receive well-prepared lesson plans coupled with assessment exercises and memoranda. These exercises will help teachers to get feedback after teaching each aspect of work. Schools will have curriculum delivery targets, which will be monitored by circuit managers on a monthly basis. The supply of qualified educators remains a challenge, particularly in subjects like mathematics and science. In addition to the provision of bursaries to attract young people into teaching, the department will engage with the Department of Higher Education and Training to encourage more young people to register for maths and science qualifications. Projects relating to new schools, curriculum support classrooms, laboratories, multi-purpose classrooms, as well as electrification, sanitation, and water will continue so that the basic functionality can be achieved in all 6,175 schools. I will now move to health. To quote Helen Keller, although the world is full of suffering, it is full also of overcoming of it. As such, the second largest portion of the provincial budget goes to the Department of Health at 34.5%. The budget over the MTF is 45 billion, 48.2 billion, and 51.6 billion, and this allows for the provision of health services primarily to the uninsured population of KZN. According to the 2017 General Household Survey, 12.6% of the KZN population are members of medical aid schemes. This means that some 1.4 people are members of medical aid schemes, while approximately 10 million, or 87.4%, are not medical aid members, and which shows you why this is our priority for us. Some key targets for our government: the department plans to improve the information community technology with broadband connectivity established in 92.9% of hospitals and 50.2% of primary healthcare facilities by March 2020. They also plan on conducting 3,074,435 HIV tests to reduce the malaria case fatality rate from 0.8% to 0.54%, to perform 9,700 cataract surgeries, and to increase the average number of daily operational ambulances from 179 to 200. The 1920 financial year will also see the commissioning of the new Pixley Ka Isaka Seme Memorial Hospital, as well as an increase in the number of clients on the centralized chronic medications dispensing and distribution from 1.7 million to 2.2 million. This entails the distribution of chronic medicines to the public, but via private distribution centers, with this mechanism used to allow for easier access and to reduce queuing time for the patients. This is done in an effort to improve the conditions of life for all South Africans, especially the poor. The department will endeavor to attract and retain skilled health personnel as well as specialists to deliver acceptable health care to our people. Moving to transport. The Department of Transport receives 8.3% of the provincial budget. The budget allocation is 10.8 billion, 11.3 billion, and 12 billion over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is for the construction of roads and the maintenance of the provincial road network. In 1920, the department will continue construction and maintenance projects, provide subsidization of bus services, learner transport services, and undertake law enforcement campaigns to promote road safety. The department will continue with the construction of roads to link rural communities to provincial hubs of activity in order to achieve the strategic goal of providing access and mobility within the province. The department will continue with the upgrading and rehabilitation of the provincial road network to improve and prolong the lifespan of the network. Transport budget also provides for the Shova Kalula program, which is an intervention to improve mobility by providing bicycles to people, including learners in rural, remote, and poorly resourced areas, to enable them to access basic needs, as well as socio and economic opportunities. The department will distribute 2,400 bicycles in 1920. This also ties up with the task we have been given to accelerate economic growth, as well as improving the conditions of life for all South Africans. Human settlements. This department receives 4 billion, 4.2 billion, and 3.9 billion over the MTF. The main purpose of this budget allocation is the provision of housing to various sectors of the population, including rural areas and informal settlements. This falls in line with the aim to improve the conditions of life of all South Africans, especially the poor. The department is in the process of finalizing a 20-year strategy which will guide the upgrading of all hostels and ensure that development costs are standardized. The major focus will be on the rehabilitation of hostels going forward and the commencement of 2,154 new projects in 4 municipalities, namely Greater Kokstad, Mbushla-Beze, Mzinduzi, and Newcastle. Continued focus and rollout of slums clearance projects is a provincial priority, and projects in this regard are currently at various stages of the housing delivery cycle. In terms of rural housing development, it is expected that 7,850 units will be completed in such areas as Mzanyati, Amajuba, Harigwala, Mkanyakude, and Ugu. Houses damaged by the flood disasters in the province on the 10th of October 2017 will be repaired with 247 million allocated for the reconstruction and repair of houses in the eThekwini Metro in the 1920 financial year. A total of 1,500 houses will have been rehabilitated. I would just like to make an aside. The performance of the Department of Human Settlements in KZN is short of amazing for 2 consecutive years in KwaZulu-Natal, because it has, through the incentive scheme, been allocated huge amounts of additional funds other provinces could not spend. I'm sorry the Honourable MEC is not in the House, but really that is the Department of Human Settlements needs to be congratulated. The Department of Social Development receives 3.5 billion, 3.7 billion, and 3.9 billion over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is mainly for the provision of social work practitioners. The work of this department is centered around improving the conditions of life for all South Africans, especially the poor. The department will continue to intensify and expand various care and support services to persons with disabilities. These include awareness programs on the rights of persons with disabilities and programs for people with albinism across all districts. The department will continue to increase access to early childhood development to poor children. The department will host the Provincial Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Summit, and the White Door Centres of Hope will be increased from 22 to 36. Focus will also be on strengthening prevention and awareness programs on substance abuse, including launching the Moja anti-substance abuse program, which targets youth at institutions of higher learning. In the ANC government, there is a massive focus on youth and women, and another firm commitment of our government moving forward. The Department of Social Development will continue to implement integrated youth development programs in its youth centres and academies, and will collaborate with the Department of Etia and other stakeholders in the implementation of high-impact skills development programs. Planned new infrastructure projects in this regard are the Wentworth Youth Development Centre and the Hibiscus Coast Youth Academy, amongst others. The department will continue to advocate for mainstreaming and empowerment of women, which is part of the Radical Agrarian Social Economic Transformation, or RACET as we know it, program. It will also ensure that women participate in various empowerment programs offered by NPOs in partnership with the department. Not long. Etia. Etia receives 3.2 billion, 3.4 billion, and 3.6 billion over the MTF. The work of this department centers around stimulating economic growth in order to create jobs, as well as developing skills needed for now as well as in the future. Our government is steadfast in its endeavor to open up the economy to previously disadvantaged citizens, Africans in particular, who make up the vast majority of our population. The major projects for Etia in 1920 include the implementation of Operation Vula and the RACET program. This includes the KZN Jajima Local Competitiveness Fund project, which will target the agro-processing value chain sector. The department will also prioritize the establishment of shared production facilities for small enterprises in support of Operation Vula, commodities such as cleaning detergents, bakery products, and toilet paper. The Sakanzuza project is another important project and a partnership project with Tongaat Hewlett, whereby support is given to small-scale sugarcane growers in areas such as King Chetwayo, Ilembe, Mkanyakure, Mandini, and Jasini. Tongaat Hewlett was planned for the planting of 1,203 hectares. Other important areas of focus are industrial economic hubs, the Tourism Entrepreneurship Career Expo, the Tourism Homestays Project, the Invasive Alien Species Program, as well as support of SMMEs and cooperative projects. The budget also provides for the KZN Youth Technical Skills Training and Placement Project, as well as the Majamela Manufacturing Center, which has planned small-scale manufacturing and value-add services centers in Nongoma, and plans to support local business with trading spaces, equipment, and shared facilities for capital equipment incubation. The department will continue to support the bulk buying project aimed at enabling small traders to get into the mainstream of the wholesale and retail sector by collective buying power to purchase directly from the manufacturers and suppliers of fast-moving consumer goods, thereby securing a better pricing structure to enable them to be competitive and grow their businesses. The department will finalize the review of the KZN Tourism Master Plan, which will provide the latest tourism trends and plans to drive tourism planning, development and marketing for the next 5 years in line with the National Tourism Sector Strategy. A provincial event strategy is also being finalized to provide guidance on various events that are key in profiling and contributing to the economic development, which will be supported and funded. Moving to agriculture and rural development, this department receives 2.4 billion, 2.6 billion and 2.7 billion over the MTEF, and will continue to focus on providing support to food insecure communities at subsistence and household food production level. The department will focus on economic growth, job creation and improving conditions of all South Africans, especially the poor. The department's agricultural development approach will be to transform and promote previously disadvantaged producers, ensuring their inclusion in the agricultural mainstream economy, in particular to achieve household food security, increase production and productivity, and promotion of competitiveness and commercialization of agricultural enterprises, especially of smallholder producers. The department will focus agricultural development on transforming key institutions in agriculture and the agribusiness value chain through the inclusion of designated groups, namely women, youth, and people with disabilities in agriculture. Also, the aim is to enhance national food self-sufficiency and food supply, as well as to increase household food security. In terms of the horticulture program, the focus will be on promoting vegetable production, including mushrooms for household food security in line with the RACIT program, as well as subtropical fruits such as macadamia, citrus, mango, and amarula. The interventions will include increased market access, increased extension support, and encouraging value addition to primary products, provision of capacity building to smallholder farmers, encouraging export of primary organization, recognizing the suitability of the province's natural resources for the production of grains and its competitive advantage, especially in the northern and inland parts of the province. The department will promote the development of grain crops, maize, dry beans, soya beans, and groundnuts, both for household food production and for commercialization processes. Moving on to COCTA. COCTA receives 1.8 billion, 1.9 billion, and 2 billion over the MTEF to coordinate support, promote good governance, and enhance financial management in municipalities, provide support and build capacity within traditional institutions, as well as to provide support intervention in various municipalities placed under administration as per Section 139 of the Constitution, and will use additional funds from National Treasury for this. The department will also continue to support the installation and recognition of Amakosi. The department's focus is on accelerating economic growth, but also to strengthen the capacity of the state. Monitoring the implementation of service delivery programs relating to electricity, water and sanitation, indigent policies which are used for keeping records of all households that qualify for free basic services, will continue to be a priority, as will supporting and maintaining functional disaster management centers, and providing assistance to districts, the metro, and sector departments with disaster risk management planning. The department will also ensure that the traditional council elections, which are now planned to take place in December 2019, are transparent and fair. Moving to Public Works, the Department of Public Works receives 1.7 billion, 1.8 billion, and 1.9 billion over the MTEF. The department will pay property rates relating to provincial properties while also focusing on its core mandate, which is the erection and/or acquisition of buildings, structures and engineering works, and the maintenance of buildings to client specification. And again, in the spirit of opening up our economy to all. In terms of job creation, the department will continue to ensure that EPWP generates more work opportunities to contribute meaningfully to poverty alleviation. The programs will be extended to more beneficiaries with disabilities and will assist beneficiaries in establishing cooperatives. The EPW Schools School Maintenance Program was originally established to benefit 4,000 beneficiaries in 5 district municipalities. It has since grown and intends to support more than 5,000 beneficiaries in over 2,000 schools across 11 district municipalities. The department will also provide support to departments and municipalities to ensure that their set EPWP job creation targets are attained. The KZN Entrepreneurial Development Centre project will be at construction stage in 1920, and it is anticipated to be completed in 2021. This facility will consist of workshops and training rooms, which will be used to provide various training and skills development services to small and medium business enterprises. A key focus area is to develop skills, thus contributing to job creation and economic growth. The department was overwhelmed with the excessive bookings of the Mayville Conference Centre since its inception and could not meet all requests received to book the centre. As a result, the department decided to provide another conference centre in Pietermaritzburg and will build a new auditorium and conference centre with expected completion by August 2020. This project consists of a main auditorium hall seating approximately 700 people, as well as 3 breakaway rooms seating 50 to 100 people. This goes a long way in saving money from using facilities that are outside government. Arts and Culture. The Department of Arts and Culture receives 1.1 billion per annum over the MTF. In 1920, the department will continue to uphold its core mandate of ensuring cultural enhancement of all people in the province through hosting various cultural events and provision of reading and writing material. The department will also continue to provide for the provincialization of libraries, as well as the construction of new libraries to increase the reach across the province. The department will focus on social cohesion and moral regeneration through the finalization of the establishment of the Moral Regeneration Council and the development of a social cohesion and moral regeneration strategy and implementation plan. The Winston Churchill Theatre will be renovated, and the Osazweni and Utungulu art centers will be upgraded for the promotion and development of cultural and creative industries. The department will also commence with the construction of the Music Academy in Ladysmith. The department will complete the Ingwavuma Library in 1920 and will commence with the constructions of libraries in Matubatuba, Richmond, Imslatuzi, Nutu, and Danhauser. In terms of the construction of the archive repository, the feasibility study was completed towards the end of 1819, and the project was handed over to the Department of Public Works, who has allocated a site of approximately 10,000 square meters for building the repository at the proposed provincial government precinct complex site. Construction of this facility is expected to commence in 1920. Provincial Treasury, we received 721.6 million, 725.7 million, and 765.4 million over the MTF, and it is largely for financial governments for general oversight of all departments, municipalities and public entities, internal audit, supply chain management, as well as support for transversal financial systems. The main aim is to attain improved provincial audit outcomes, to ensure on-budget spending, and to remain cash positive. Risk-based audits with specific focus on overall governance will be performed. Departments will continue to be assisted in terms of ensuring that risk assessments are performed. A case management system tool will be implemented in departments and public entities to assess whether the recommendations as contained in forensic reports are being implemented. The role of Treasury in terms of SONA tasks is to fight corruption and to strengthen the capacity and capability of the state. Very importantly, Provincial Treasury has been identified as a key player in supporting the radical economic transformation program in the province through the implementation of a progressive supply chain management regime. To this end, Provincial Treasury will closely monitor and report on the extent that departments implement the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act in the drafting of tenders. Support will also be provided to assist departments in the interpretation and implementation of the PPPFA regulations that were promulgated in April 2017 in order to address the economic imbalances that persist in public procurement space in KZN. The Office of the Premier received 714 million, 753.9 million, and 795.4 million over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget allocation is for cross-cutting and transversal activities such as Operation Sukamasaki, integrity management, youth development, support to His Majesty the King, as well as transfers to its public entity, the Royal Household Trust. The overarching responsibilities are to encourage economic growth, to develop skills to improve the conditions of life of all South Africans, to fight corruption, and to strengthen the capacity and capability of the state. The Provincial Planning Commission will continue to support the relevant line function departments in pursuing key intervention, such as the formalization of rural settlements, the establishment of community services centers, renewable energy opportunities, etc. The MTF also caters for the annual citizen satisfaction survey, as well as the PGDS and PGDP reviews undertaken every 2 years. The department will continue the gender, disability, senior citizens and children, as well as Ombudsman activities to promote and monitor the implementation of human rights related policies by departments and municipalities. The department will also focus on the functionality of war rooms in as far as equipment is concerned to support ward teams. With regard to the Nkululeko development project, the focus for 1920 will be on the second phase, namely the Nkululeko development project phase 2 in the Mzanyati and Utikela districts. The provincial legislature. Your legislature will receive 598.8 million, 638.9 million, and 674.1 million over the MTF for the effective procedural and related support to the House and to committees and to facilitate public participation. The legislature will continue to improve its oversight, amongst others, departments and public entities during the year. Public involvement initiatives like taking legislature to the people and sector parliaments will continue in 1920. The legislature will continue to focus on procedures and processes that need to be reviewed and or changed to achieve full implementation of the FMPPLA, FUMPLA as the legislature calls it. The 2019 general elections, which are scheduled to be held in May 2019, are also likely to have some impact on the legislature activities, programs, and spending programs, both before and after the general elections. The last two departments, Sport and Recreation. The Department of Sport and Recreation receives 479,506.6 million and 535.4 million over the MTF to promote sport and recreation through the provision of various programs and construction of sport and recreation facilities. This falls in line with the aim to improve the conditions of life of all South Africans. The department plans to construct 94 sport and recreation facilities in total, comprising 2 basic sport and recreation facilities, 33 play gyms, 22 multi-purpose courts, 33 children kickabout sports facilities, as well as completing 4 district fitness centers. The department will focus on the delivery of district, provincial, and national school sport competitions, with these divided into winter, summer, and autumn games. It is anticipated that 20,000 learners will take part in these competitions, and 400 schools will be provided with equipment and attire for intra-school activities. The club development program will be used to organize sport at the most basic level in order to develop age group leagues that can affiliate to the local code associations. In this regard, 135 age group leagues, primarily in football, netball, and volleyball, involving 1,100 clubs, will participate. In terms of the Healthy Lifestyle program, the #IChoose to be active campaign involves activities across all recreational activities, such as the Golden Games, Indigenous Games, the Big Walk, and Recreational Day. This is part of ongoing efforts to promote and fight against lifestyle diseases and obesity. The Department of Community Safety and Liaison receives 235 million, 242.8 million, and 256.1 million over the MTF. The bulk of the department's budget is for ward safety committees, community safety initiatives, including the voluntary social crime prevention program, maintenance of community safety forums and community policing forums, crime awareness campaigns, which include the prevention of violence against vulnerable groups, including children and youth, rural safety and public participation in community safety, as well as the monitoring and evaluation of police performance. With regard to the 2019 general election, the department will undertake interventions in respect of areas where instability is reported and will monitor voting stations where required. This falls in line with the aim to improve the conditions of life of all South Africans. Just in terms, as is customary, I am tabling the Appropriation Bill 2019 in this House today, which, when passed, gives the legal basis for departments and public entities to spend their 1920 budget allocation. In the event that this bill is not passed before the beginning of the 1920 financial year, Section 29 of the PFMA allows departments to commence spending the amounts allocated to them before the bill is passed. Section 29 requires provinces to pass their own Direct Charges Act through, and this was done in 2002 when the Kwazulu-Natal Direct Charges Act number 4 was passed. This act read in Section 29 of the PFMA thus provides the legal basis for provincial departments and public entities to commence spending their allocation before the final appropriation and voting processes have been concluded. The Act falls in line with Section 29.2 of the PFMA, which allows for a maximum of 45% of the budget to be spent in the first 4 months of the year based on the amount appropriated in the previous annual budget, and provides for a further 10% to be spent in ensuing months, but limits this expenditure to the amount appropriated in the previous annual budget. Section 29 of the PFMA explains that such expenditure would then be viewed as a direct charge against the revenue fund. Section 29(4) indicates that this provision is not applicable to provinces unless a provincial act provides that the withdrawal of funds in terms of this section is a direct charge against the province's revenue fund. The KZN Direct Charges Act of 2002 is thus the provincial act that makes provision for this instance. Members, I am explaining this to you because we are going into the election and the budget will invariably be passed after the elections. In conclusion, and I really thank you for your patience for a very long debate, despite the budget cuts, our firm commitment to the people of KwaZulu-Natal is that we protect government's key priority programs so that we do not lose sight of our vision of ensuring a better life for all. Provincial Treasury took very conscious and mindful steps in this budget to protect the service delivery budgets of departments from being cut. It is important that all of us take ownership of the cost-cutting measures. We all have a role to play. We must redirect more and more funds to core service delivery programs for the benefit of our people, especially in the face of continual budget cuts. I want to thank our Honourable Premier, Mr. Mkhunu, and my Provincial Executive Council colleagues for their support in putting together this budget in very trying times. My gratitude also goes to the Ministers' Committee on the Budget. Our focus in all decisions taken was to protect the funds allocated department for the improvement of the lives of our people. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Honourable Minister of Finance and the National Treasury officials for their guidance and technical support. I would also like to thank the Provincial Legislature and in particular the Honourable Chair, Mr. Nkosi, and members of the Finance Committee in their support. I thank the heads of departments, chief financial officers, and all provincial government officials for the role they played in managing their budgets. And I thank you, HOD Magagula, and your fantastic team for working incredibly long hours to produce such detailed budget documents. Your work ethic and dedication is truly appreciated. Let me also express my gratitude to APSA, who the province banks with, who has graciously offered to sponsor the post-budget breakfast which I will be holding in Durban tomorrow. Finally, on a personal note, as my term in public office comes to an end, I want to extend my deep and sincere gratitude to the Honourable Premier and the ANC leadership in this province for bestowing upon me the great honour to serve as the MEC of Finance in KwaZulu-Natal. I hope I have served you and the province well. These past 5 years of fiscal consolidation has been a difficult journey to navigate, but I, together with my exceptional team in Provincial Treasury, have steered the ship in the right direction, never veering from our course of good, prudent, and sound and wise oversight over the provincial fiscus. I leave you with a Treasury with a sound bank account, and I leave you with a budget that remains focused on service delivery and the improvement of the quality of life for all. I thank you.
Thank you. Order. 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 Thank you very much, Honorable MEC, for your budget speech, and I think you took really time, and your stamina is appreciated to complete within 1.5 hours almost. That then brings us to the end of item 8.2, which will then take us to the break from now to 1:30. And as we adjourn the House for lunch, there are 2 announcements from chairpersons of Portfolio Committee on Finance is to meet during lunch at the committee room during lunch to process the second adjustment bill that has been tabled earlier on. I wonder if we are going to hear if we are talking. I'm making announcements so that people can hear, but there's a lot of rumblings. The next announcement, Portfolio Committee on Transport would requested to have a special meeting to meet at Lillian Goyi room during the lunch break. When we come back, then we'll debate, a short debate on the second adjustment appropriation bill. The House is adjourned till 1:30. Or let's say 25 to 2, because I can see people are worried about 5 minutes. 1:30.